I think we have Justice Manohar here and we have two wonderful activists. So we should use this opportunity for a discussion and a question-answer session.
Question to respectable Judge Sujata Manohar, madam. In the film city, hero is getting much more money than the heroine. Have any case law or have any heroine or any suo motu has been come up?
This paper that women heroines get much lower pay than the men. I think that is really a very archaic mentality that we are displaying. I think many of the shows run because of the women who are there rather than the men. And I think we do need to pay them at least equal, if not more, than men.
Hello, ma'am. Can I ask you? Ma'am, madam, why don't we attach the property bank account of the man who does this bad deed, attach his parents' bank property and get him married, and he should not get any job? This will be the ideal solution for that. Thank you.
Well, you should see how many will accept this kind of a suggestion. The idea is to punish somebody who does wrong. And perhaps this is not the best of ways of doing it. Because when you go to attach properties, you may well find that the properties are in somebody else's name. You can award compensation to the victim and get the person who is guilty to pay the amount if he is in a position to pay it. That is, I think that would be a better way of doing things.
I think the law should be a deterrent.
Yes.
It is not about monetary compensation to any victim. The law should be such that it is a deterrent for any man to do anything like that to anyone.
I think that is why we have the punishment, life imprisonment, or even in some cases, if it results in death, you may even impose a death sentence. But apart from that, is there anything which you can do for the victim? So this is punishment for the man, but how do you take care of the victim? So it is on from that point of view that you also have to look at what else you can do.
Hello. Our eyes are weary from reading about the abuse of children. Now, it's all very well to say sex discrimination in gender discrimination is illegal. Who's going to look after the unwanted children? What happens? This to me is a question. To just insist that someone has a baby girl, boy, whatever they do not want is fairly easy. What happens to these children? We are all sick and tired of reading about abused children, unwanted children. Secondly, as far as dowry goes, the parents are giving dowry to get rid of a girl very often. So it can be the parents' fault too.
Yes, no, you're quite right there. So we also require for children who are unwanted, or children who are destitute, who don't have parents. We have these so-called children's homes, which are not really homes for children at all. So there was a movement undertaken by some of the NGOs to put these children in foster care, with families who will look after these children for a little payment or something like that. So we have to look, or they can be given in adoption if there is nobody. So we have to look at alternative ways of looking at these children also, because there are a number of children who are unwanted. And first of all, they should not, if the parents didn't want them, they should have made sure and taken steps to see that they don't get them. But
we are insisting someone has a girl when they do not want the girl. So who's supposed to look after them?
You think it is better to do away with them? You have to educate the parents to tell them that this is your child and it is your responsibility to look after the child. And if you bring her up properly and educate her, she will look after you when you are older. Everybody has his own self-interest in mind also. So you must tell them and educate them that the girls can also look after parents if they are educated and can earn. So I think the whole education process has to go.
I think the adoption law is also, they are making it a little more simpler so that such children can be adopted by others? Because at present it is very strict.
I'm a mother of 3 adopted kids, and let me tell you, it's impossible. It's impossible legally to actually seriously contemplate adoption, and then after contemplating adoption, actually doing it. It's an impossible law. That's the real truth. So you have a lot of unwanted children, and I totally agree with you. Somebody has to take responsibility for these unwanted children. The point is that the state is only offering these homes or foster care. You have SOS villages too. But the problem, I think, is that it is not only the girl child who's unwanted, okay? There are lots of children who are out there, who are on the street, who are not being taken care of, and I think we need better laws to deal with it. We don't have good laws to deal with missing children or unwanted children. And if Justice Manohar will permit me, the problem with trafficking also is that the source age for children to be trafficked into many things, from beggary to prostitution, is actually under 10. And we are not dealing with the source age ever in the whole issue of trafficking, and that's the problem.
You're right about the adoption laws being totally unsatisfactory. Because I remember years ago, when I was practicing as a lawyer, that was a very long time ago, I had a case where a couple wanted to adopt twin girls. And they could not, because the law then said you could adopt only one girl. And if you have a girl, then you can't adopt a girl. So they had to only adopt one girl and take the other child in guardianship, which is not fair to the parents or to the child. So some laws also need changes.
So unfair to the child.
A child also, both.
I think that the policy which is to be announced today, the women's policy, it has taken care of that. Making law simpler. Yes, yes. Today.
You know, ma'am, there is a certain community predominantly living in Mumbai who discriminate against women who marry outside their faith. How would the government or rather the justice would look at such discriminations in today's world?
Well, I think that community does need to change, but this is very common, that people don't like, forget about inter-religious marriages, inter-caste marriages also, and these khap panchayats, as you know, that they have even ordered that these young couples should be killed if they violate their so-called code of behavior. So we have a serious problem on our hands when we are so totally divided by caste, creed and so on. I remember when we got independence, all of us who were youngsters refused to write our caste in the form which was required to be filled in. Now everybody has to fill in caste, because then if you belong to a scheduled caste, you will get some special benefits. So we are accentuating caste rather than eliminating it. And I think it is a big drawback for the country, because we are dividing the country rather than uniting it.
We've talked about the role of law, or whether complaints get registered, and this is really for all three. But I have a suspicion that there is a lot more that people in society need to do. Let me give you just a simple example. It is not that in the case of harassment in an office, let's say, that the other members of that office staff are unaware of what is going on. But if we lay the burden only on some mechanism by which a complaint will get filed, it will be handled in court and so on, there are 100 people in that office. Stop talking to the bugger. I'm sorry for the Swahili, but I mean, there are actions that all of us can take as human beings. Somebody has taken a dowry, stop inviting them to your home. Don't talk to them. I'm just thinking aloud that there is a role for society, not place the whole burden on the judiciary or on the registration of FIRs and so on. Just your observations, please.
You see, there are all kinds of situations. Supposing the person who is harassing is the boss and all the others are working under him, nobody will come forward or do anything about it. If it is somebody in the same position and you have some support within the staff, they may come and help you. So it is a very complex situation. If for example, if it's a small organization and the head of that organization is indulging in such acts, who can complain? Because all who complain will have to leave that organization. So it is very difficult to take into account all kinds of situations when you deal with a problem like this.
No, I just don't want to go into a specific question, but from Bollywood to adoption, to many of these cases, one hears argument, and I think recently Dr. Amartya Sen mentioned that you cannot expect so-called market forces or the so-called state to determine what should happen between the relationship of man and woman and the human relationship in general. Even in Bollywood, they give the explanation that it is market forces, and even while adoption of girls, I have seen people talking of market forces when people from Europe try to adopt girls here or boys here, and the price so-called is determined by the market forces. And the same is true even in the fertility centers. And in fertility centers, the so-called market force has gone to such an extent that they are trying to determine sperm and egg. And the sperm and egg relationship, and whether they want a black boy or a white boy, they want to find out the genetic pattern. So now, unfortunately, the so-called market and sometimes even the state is trying to interfere with, from genetics to fashion to tradition. And I think neither, as Amartya Sen said, neither tradition nor market nor state should determine, and therefore, as Justice Manohar kept on saying, we have to insist on broadening the mind, educating the communities, and alerting and making people aware of their individual right as human being, woman and man, and equality. I think only that is a solution. We cannot depend on state, market or tradition.
Yeah, but what about state responsibility? State responsibility, Kumar. My problem is that the state has to be held responsible for some things. We have to look to the state for that. I'm not saying we're looking for solutions, but I definitely am saying that the state has to be held responsible for missing children, for instance. You know, this one girl ran away from my house, long story. I went to the police station, they gave me one big, huge file of lots of missing persons, and the policeman is actually telling me, please add your photograph and add the form, and that's all we can do. And I said, is there not? No. My point is that the state is very selective in finding missing people. It does not care for missing children. That's my problem with the state.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think we should hold the state accountable. I can't say, let's leave the state, or allow the state to get away with being irresponsible. The state has to be held responsible. Someone has to be held responsible. Somebody should take the responsibility of asking for accountability as to why that file is lying like that without any intervention for years and years. That's what my story is.
No, you have brought in a correct point, and nobody disagrees with that. The point is how much state should interfere with individual life was a question raised in Beijing conference in 1995 when the laws passed by the Chinese government against having 2 children, and that began to interfere with individual woman's life. I am not even saying family life. Individual woman's life, and then women went for steroids and started having a twin because the twin was not banned, but 2 children were banned. So what Amartya Sen is referring to is that the state's role in interfering with individual right, which you mentioned in your community work.
We are talking about
that
two
different
different
things.
things.
We are talking about two different things. We are talking 2 different things. State has a role to play. In fact, when we discuss law, that they should make a law. If there was no state,
I
there would be no law.
agree with you entirely that the state should stay out of my bedroom and my bed. I have believed that all my life, and I'll continue to believe it. The point is
that is the only point.
In the situation of missing children, in situations like this, I feel the state has a responsibility and it should be held accountable. That I agree.
That's why we invited, I think, Justice Manohar, because we accept the role of the state.
Excuse me, this question is to leadership. While I celebrate in being a woman and I respect women, I just would like to know what is leadership's take when women exploit the act and falsely accuse the man. in that case, when the man is exonerated at the end, what the lady should be penalized for, or what is the provision under the law? That's it. Thank you.
The whole idea is to make sure that somebody doesn't make false allegations and get away with them. You see, we used to presume that a woman will not make a false allegation because it stigmatizes her. But perhaps some women are capable of doing this, and we have to make sure that they are exposed for what it is. And whether the man can probably sue her in defamation, or there might be some other provisions under the law. I am not very sure if there is anything else. But
Ladyship, I just would like to speak of one case. If
Yes.
I've understood it correctly from the news report.
Yes.
There is this lady who made an accusation against the man and walked out on that marriage. And later it was found that she made a false complaint, and that man also lost his job, repute, whatever. Right now, I just wanted to know, what is your observation? It's a very famous case. I don't want to name it. So I just wanted to know. That's all. Thank you.
no, I think he will be able to take action for making a false complaint against him, and he may be able to get damages. I don't know whether under criminal law he will be able to do so or not. I'm not sure. Actually, that is not my area of expertise. But maybe some criminal law will be able to help you there. But certainly civil action for damages, he will.
Okay, with this we come to the end of our session.